Namaste. How are you today? I hope you're doing good, feeling good, and thinking good. As Bhagavad Gita would tell us that we think, we do, at the same time we say. In our previous discussion, we were told that meditation is very important and that when we do something, we should do it with love. We must do our dharma without complaining. Instead, we should do it with thanksgiving. Today we're going to continue with our discussion from chapter 15. And in saying that, I hope you've already liked and subscribed to our channel. And more so, I hope this channel is helping you, especially in chapter 15. So we will continue. In the previous chapters, Krishna has been instructing Arjuna pertaining the importance of Kuna, of Dharma, and meditation. And now, in chapter 13, he would introduce the field of explain function in the body of the field itself of the nerve of the field, like the function of the body of the field. Krishna reports that he is the knower of the field in everybody. He is the ultimate self, present in all beings. On the most basic level, Krishna is the self, knower in every field of body. He describes the elements that make up the field and the attributes of a knower. The object of knowledge is the supreme reality and essence of all things. He said a truly wise person demonstrates persistence in knowing the self and awareness of the goal of knowing. So it's very important that we know ourselves. Krishna refers to this as authentic knowledge. He tells Arjuna that a devotee who understands these concepts and their relation to one another is ready for God's state of being. According to Krishna, nature causes activity such as heat or cold in the body. The self is what generates responses to bodily activity such as pain and pleasure. Both are manifestations of God and are without beginning. Whether positive and loving, passionate and active, or dull and negative, a person's natural disposition interacts with nature. We are one with nature. Nature creates the activity that makes up existence and all its chaos. So we have to take care of nature like we take care of ourselves. Still, the self is separate from the experience of nature and the body with each their related positive and negative reactions and feelings. So even if we are a part of nature, we have a control over this body, this self that was given to us. Understanding this separation, he said, will help free a person from the cycle of rebirth. Krishna wants Arjuna to understand that the self is part of God. We were reminded all throughout Bhagavad Gita that we are a part of a greater good, of a greater person that is God, even though while embodied experiences the impact of both nature and the body. A wise person knows that the self is ultimately separate from nature and the body. Realizing the separation, he said, will bring the devotee serenity because the self will stop being affected by the temperament of one's nature. Krishna then instructs Arjuna about the ultimate knowledge yoga masters have achieved. He explained he is the seed giving father and that nature is the womb, so he gives life. All beings come forth from the combination of the two. The three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, are based upon a person's disposition. The gunas keep the eternal self bound to the physical body. Sattva binds by attachment to knowledge and joy. Rajas by passion and activity. And tamas by laziness and sleep. Well, in Divine Comedy, we were told that if we are slothful, we will go to the fifth circle of hell. So we should try not to be so lazy, perhaps. Of the three, Sattva has the power to uplift a person and lead to enlightenment because it is connected to wisdom. All throughout the Bhagavad Gita, we would know how he encourages education. how he encourages us to learn because he wanted us to have wisdom. The other two create status or drag a person down. The guna that rules people when they die is significant because it will dictate the type of rebirth they enter. So see if we have wisdom, or if we are ruled by passion, or we are so slothful or lazy. It tells us the kind of rebirth, what our life, the next time we are born, will be. Arjuna asked Krishna how to recognize someone who has transcended the gunas. Krishna then tells Arjuna that the person who has gone beyond the three gunas isn't attached and responds equally to sorrow and joy. If you remember, in our previous videos, we were told of equanimity, our unattachment, our ability to feel happy and to feel sad, but then we should not be we should not be attached. We should not dwell into that. Such a devotee, Krishna says, treats all equally, and he is indifferent to honor and to disgrace, and is serene in success or failure. So we have to keep calm, in control of ourselves. Having discussed the unattachment to things, Krishna then describes the realm of sorrow as a tree, with the branches fed by the gunas and the roots by action. See, our action is very important. The leaves, he said, represent the sacred hymns. Krishna instructs Arjuna to cut this tree down with a sharp-edged axe of detachment and search for God, or the primal person. In Christianity, we were told to let go of all that we have and follow Christ. And so that is also the instructions of Krishna when he said, cut the tree down with a sharp edged axe of detachment, and then he should search for God, or the primal person, who is the essence of the universe. When Krishna inhabits a body, he said, he is not attached to the sensations of it, but enjoys them and lets them pass like scents on the wind. As we put it, these too shall pass. People who have self discipline and follow the path of yoga recognize God in themselves as their self. So they respect the self. Beings have two different levels of existence, and Krishna explains that all beings are transient as bodies, but eternal within the self. That is our Atman, our soul. Krishna reveals that the ultimate person mentioned in the scriptures is actually him. He said this is a secret knowledge he is passing to Arjuna. As Arjuna is still in dazed of all the knowledge that he is receiving, Krishna discussed with him the divine traits and the demonic traits. Krishna describes the characteristics that belong to wise men versus men with demonic traits. He said the divine traits are those of the enlightened person, or the person with the potential to become a sage, blessed one. These traits include purity of heart, integrity, compassion, courage, and a loving heart. Krishna considers the traits of ignorance, hypocrisy, anger, and conceit demonic qualities. You would see that the Bible also would see such traits as demonic. If you remember, Lucifer, he was filled with envy and pride, and it brought him down. According to Krishna, Arjuna has the divine traits. Krishna explains that a man born with demonic traits may think the universe has no moral order, no truth, no God. Thus, these people enter hell by allowing themselves to be controlled by their endless desires. These men are reborn again and again into demonic wombs and become trapped in hell as a result. So, see, our acts would dictate where we go when we are reborn and when we die for good. Having heard all the lessons, Arjuna wanted to clear off thoughts in his mind, and therefore he had asked Krishna, which guna prevails in men who worship with faith but reject the scriptures? Krishna responds that there are three types of faith. Each corresponds to a person's inner nature, depending upon which guna dominates. People with sattvic nature worship God. Those with Rajasic nature worship demigods and demons, and those with tamasic nature worship dark spirits and ghosts. The tamasic would tell us of the laziness rather, and then our Rajasic are those which are ruled by pleasures. Krishna also divides food into three categories. Take note, food. According to the gunas, sattvic foods are fresh and succulent and encourage vitality. Rajasic foods are bitter, salty, sour, or pungent and cause discomfort, while the tamasic foods are bland, stale, overcooked, and contaminated. Perhaps because the tamasic people are lazy, so they just do it without love completely. Worship done according to scripture only for the sake of worship is sattvic. Worship done out of desire is rajasic. Work Worship done without faith is tamasic. Sattvic control of the body, mind, and speech is practiced in faith with no desire for an outcome. Rajasic control comes from pride in order to gain respect or admiration, while the tamasic control is used to harm or gain power over others. Finally, charity also can be divided into three types according to the gunas. Sattvic charity is given for its own sake. Rajasic charity is half-hearted and given selfishly, while tamasic charity is given disrespectfully at the wrong place or time. So see, even our charity must have time and place. Krishna explains the phrase Om Tat Sat. The sacred sound Om is chanted at the beginning of an act of charity, control, or worship. Translated from Sanskrit as the Absolute, is chanted during the performance of right action. You will see this in movies and sometimes we laugh at it, but then we would see in our Bhagavad Gita that the Om is a very, very sacred sound. Sat is chanted to indicate a praiseworthy action. If worship, control, or charity are done without faith, they are referred to in Sanskrit as asat or unreal. Those would tell us that something is only real when it is done out of love, out of worship for that great spirit. Having fortified in Arjuna the importance of faith, guna, and dharma, in this final chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna teaches Arjuna about renunciation. Krishna makes a distinction between the concept of renunciation and that of relinquishing. Renunciation, or the act of renouncing, means letting go of actions motivated by desire. Relinquishing means giving up the fruits of action. Krishna insists that although embodied beings cannot completely relinquish action, they must relinquish the results of action. Five elements are present whether action occurs. These elements are the physical body, the agent, the sensory organs, behaviors, and divine providence. Persons of limited understanding see themselves as the sole agent of an action and fail to recognize these five components. So for an action to be complete, there must be those five elements again: the physical body, the agent, the sensory organs, the behaviors, and divine providence. Even I think in our science, an action has or something to be moved. If something is to be moved, then something must have forced it, or or else it will stay on its unmoving state. Krishna divides these three concepts knowledge, action, and agent, into their respective gunas. Sattvic knowledge comprehends that all beings are undivided among the divided, or truly one single unchanging being. The notion of being separate is relinquished. Knowledge that perceives the world as consisting of separate and disconnected individual beings is rajasic. Tamasic knowledge doesn't care about the truth of things. Well, tamasic, the lazy one, no? Action is sattvic when it is right action with pure motivations. It's not selfish. Whereas rajasic action is done to satisfy desires. What do I want? I want this result. This is what I should do. That is rajasic. However, Krishna warns that even the most praiseworthy acts should be done with complete non-attachment. So when you do it, just do it for love. It's not because you want to be famous, you want people to appreciate you and the likes. Tamasic action comes from delusion and lack of care for others. The sattvic person is free from ego and attachment. The rajasic person desires results and is motivated by ego, pride. The tamasic person is lazy and often cruel. The concepts of understanding, will, and happiness are each similarly characterized by the three gunas. The happiness which comes from long practice for a person with a sattvic nature is difficult to obtain, yet brings serenity. So it needs practice, constant meditation rather. Happiness, characterized by rajas, arises from the sense, and by tamas from indifference and laziness. Krishna describes the happiness in terms of poison and nectar. For those with rajasic tendencies, seeking happiness through sensory experiences or greed turns from nectar into poison. For those who practice yoga steadfastly, the effort feels rigorous at first, tiring, or like poison, but it turns into nectar. Those driven by tamasic natures are always in a place of delusion, imagination, imagine. Krishna also reinforces the importance of doing one's duty. According to the caste of one's birth, he defines this as a person being born with the dharma of a priest, warrior, or laborer, and says, content with this natural duty, each one achieves success. So we don't say, I am just a, or teacher lang ko, and the likes. Success, success, Krishna instructs, may be achieved by right action dedicated to God. He summarizes the positive qualities needed to reach Him and thus attain release from the cycle of rebirth. We have to remember if we are released from the cycle of rebirth, we join Him in His heavenly realm. The chapter ends with an emphasis on how the person of yoga must be devoted to Krishna. Therefore, he tells Arjuna not to worry and to focus all his energy and love on Krishna. Again, we must do everything in love and in devotion to Krishna, or in our case, to our own God. Arjuna will be saved as a result, he said. Anyone who is thoroughly devoted to Krishna will be freed in the same way. Just as in Christianity we are taught, as long as we have faith in God and we follow His will and we devote ourselves to Him in our actions, in words, in thoughts, and in deed, His mercy will save us. This is Krishna's secret reserved for the people who are disciplined and striving toward God. Arjuna expresses tremendous gratitude for the truth he had learned from Krishna and promises to fight. Remember, they had this conversation because Arjuna wouldn't want to fight his kins. The poet Sanjaya finishes recounting the most secret doctrine directly from Krishna, he said, and he concluded by saying that where the Lord of Yoga and Arjuna the archer are present, so are virtue and spiritual wealth. And that ends our Bhagavad Gita. Again, remember, all our thoughts, our actions, and our words must be done with love and devotion to the Supreme Being. I hope that this video has helped you in your literary subjects, not just in the subject, but may it also be applied in how we deal with others, especially in these trying times. As we put it, a little touch of kindness could go a long way. So thank you and keep safe, everyone. Please do not forget to like and subscribe and also share so it may reach some more students or literary enthusiasts. Have a good day ahead. Thank you.